All right, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode here on the Lure Lab, a part of the Serious Angler Network. And as always, I am your host, the captain, Andrew Full. And I apologize for that little gap there at the beginning. I wasn't sure what I wanted to say and start off with. We missed an episode last weekend for good reason. Myself and the family went on a little family vacation, and it was just a hectic week with guide trips and squeezing everything in. So I thought it was best just to not rush something and throw it out there. We don't miss too many of them. I hate missing weeks, but we have a really awesome episode lined up for you guys here today. We have John Martin joining us from True South Custom Lures, and we're diving all into buzzbait fishing. And it's that time of year. Bass, chow on buzzbaits. You can not only catch giants on it, but it's a great numbers catcher as well. And we're going to dive into all the ins and outs of buzzbaits and when you should throw them and single blades, dual blades, etc. Basically, we have a laundry list of questions here, so I hope you stay tuned. And there's going to be a lot of information dropped here. But anyways, I do want to apologize. I have missed a lot of episodes on the Serious Angler side on Tuesday Night Lives and the Friday shows. And that is due to, I think I mentioned it in the last episode, I've been severely underneath the weather. I think we have some light at the end of the road, so I should be able to start making those on a weekly basis again. It stinks. I hate missing episodes. So I really appreciate everyone who tunes in and will understand why I have missed some episodes. I have some sinus stuff going on in the right side of my head that I really need to get taken care of. And I think we're on the right track. And that being said, if you do want to book a guide trip up here in Lake Erie, all my contact information is down below. We're heading into the post-spawn period, deep summer rock transition, which is my favorite time of year to get out there and catch giant smallmouth in the summertime areas, deep rock piles, like 40, 60 foot of water sometimes. So if you're interested in heading up to Buffalo, reach out to me on social media, Lure Lab, or my personal page, and we'll get you out on the water and hopefully catch the biggest smallmouth of your life. But I don't want to keep rambling on here, so let's get John on. Let's dive into True South Custom Lures and talk all about buzzbaits and how to catch some really big bass on them. All right, John, how's it going?
Good, man. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm looking forward to talking about buzzbaits. It's something I love to fish, and I'm really excited about diving into it.
Before we even dive into the buzzbait story, I do want to tell you one. I think it's one of the first few times I've went fishing with my podcast partner Bailey, and he was talking about True South Custom Lures, and he had a bunch of spinner baits in his box. And I believe it was on my first cast. I actually caught like a 4-pounder on one of your spinner baits. So I'm already a believer in the baits, and I will be honest, I haven't tried the buzz baits, but he loves them. So I'm sure after this episode, I'll be picking some up because buzzbait fishing is one of my absolute favorite ways to catch a ton of bass. And some of the smallmouth up here, I absolutely love them at certain times of the year. We're kind of getting into that point. So I like throwing some sneaky top water for them as they come off the beds and kind of fry guard. So, but anyways, let's dive right into it, right? Like True South Custom Lures, buzzbaits. I want to know, why should every angler have a buzzbait tied on or in their arsenal, and what are they missing on if they do not?
Well, I mean, it's absolutely a big fish catcher, and I don't know anyone that says they don't enjoy catching fish on a buzzbait because it's top water, it's very visual, it's just an awesome bite to get. And I mean, you always need to have one tied on. I feel like anytime the water's above 50 degrees. I mean, it's just one of those baits that always produces a good fish, especially in the perfect conditions, especially in the, this time of year, for sure.
And I'm sure there's a lot of like specifics that go into a buzzbait to make them operate best when that water's a little bit cooler. So I'm sure we're going to dive into that here in a little bit later on in the episode. But I really want to know the backstory behind True South Custom Lures. We're kind of talking about it offline before we got on here. So I want to know the true story on why you decided to start building baits and selling them to the general public.
Right. So, I mean, I've been fishing since I was bass fishing, probably since I was about 10 years old. So that's about 44 years of bass fishing. But really, like early on, I joined a bass club when I was probably about 18 or 19 years old. And I literally like fell in love with the fishing aspect of bass fishing, not just tournaments, but just bass fishing itself. And I've always been a bait tinkerer, and I've always enjoyed like messing around with baits and changing baits and just, just building the baits that I want to have myself, which, there's some great baits out there online. There's some absolutely fantastic baits available to everyone, but there's something about building your own baits, and I did that for a long time. I fished the early years of the Redman Trail, and then when it became the BFL, I fished some. But then like life happens, right? So,
Yeah.
My wife and I met. We started fishing together. We used to travel a little bit and fish like a couples trail throughout the Southeast, which we really enjoyed. Then we started having kids, so that kind of put a damper on that. So I was always making baits and giving them to my friends, and my wife really encouraged me, along with a couple really close friends, to say, look, like you make some really nice baits. Why don't you just make a little website and sell those baits to guys and see what happens? And that's kind of the birth of True South Custom Lures. It's probably around 2008 or so. And it just took off from there. And then eventually I was able to leave my career working in the chemical industry after 25 years and step away and do this full time. And that's probably been about 8 years now. So, I mean, I'm really blessed to be able to do that. And I really appreciate the support of my close friends and my wife, and everyone encouraged me to do something that I really love to do,
Absolutely. Now, how do your hands feel after a day of building all these baits?
But
Or do you have like a team helping you now, or is it just you?
no, it's pretty much me. I mean, I've made some improvements over the years to speed things up. Like, as far as wire forms, I have custom wire forms built now. I used to do everything by hand. Pretty much all the wire forms are hand done, all of that. Now I have, spin casting to do, so I don't have to do a lot of hand pouring. All my forms are custom made now. So, I've over the years, I've kind of increased my productivity that way. But yeah, man, I mean, it's nothing for me to get in the shop and make 100 to 200 buzz baits in a day.
Well, that's cranking them out, I'll tell you. That's that's busy man's work right there.
Yeah,
So
but I do
that's
have,
awesome.
my son, he's getting ready to graduate high school. He's been helping me a lot. My daughter helps me with packaging and stuff. And my wife, of course, she handles a lot of the business side of things. So
Yeah.
it's a family effort for sure.
It's good to have a team. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. And it's really fun to be able to share that with them. We go to shows together. Our customers meet all of us. It's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I have first-hand experience with the spinner baits, but I know, like I said, Bailey, the main brainchild of the network, he absolutely loves the buzz baits, and he was catching some really big ones on the V Twin, I believe it is, with just like
Yeah.
threading it on, which is the thumbnail I posted on the Instagram
Yeah.
announcing this episode coming out.
Yeah, he said he had a really good day the other day on it. He
Uh,
sent me pictures.
yeah, unreal. I think his big one was just under 7, which is a giant
Yeah,
for New York. So,
I mean, and that's why we throw buzz baits, man. It's like it's not something you're going to catch. Like in a 3-day tournament, you're probably not going to win a tournament on a buzz bait
yeah,
for 3 days. It's just almost like a glide bait, but you'll catch some really key fish if those fish are biting a buzz bait in those times. During that.
and that's one of the best part. One of the most intriguing parts about fishing in general is like the bite windows and when they happen, and making sure you have the right bait tied on to get the biggest bite possible when that bite window opens. So, as we're talking about like bites and bite windows, do you have, or do you remember like, or have a couple memorable moments throwing a buzzbait that you want to share?
Yeah, I do. Like way back when I used to fish a farm pond with my grandfather, he had like the holy grail of tackle boxes, right? It's like I'm not allowed to touch these things, but when we
Yeah.
go fishing, we would bluegill fish. But one day I'm like, Grandpa, can I tell him that bait right there? And it was a homemade buzz bait. I don't know who made it, It was just a single bladed buzzbait. And he's like, sure, tie it on, cast it parallel to the bank, and just,
Hold
once you get
on.
it on top, just reel it along and wait and see what happens. And I caught like a 5-pounder, dude. It was like, I'm hooked, and every time we go to the pond, I'm like, I want to tie on the buzzbait. He's like, well, they may not be biting it today, but that's kind of my love for buzzbaits over the years. Is just I'm a topwater kind of angler. So anytime I can catch fish on top water, be it be a walking bait, a popper, a buzzbait, I'm going to try to do that.
Yeah. You're not biased to one. You just love topwater fishing. Period, is what it sounds.
Yeah, and
I love that.
like the secret, the hardest thing about a buzzbait is to know when to pick it up and when to put it down. I mean, and that goes, for a lot of different baits as well.
Now, have you found that there's like a rhyme or reason when you should pick it up or not? Or is it just like, oh, I'm throwing it right now and I got bit, or I feel like I should be getting bit, but they're not biting it or rising on it, so I might need to slow
Right.
down or throw something
I
down.
don't have like an exact formula for that, because fish will make you look stupid sometimes.
They never
But
follow the book.
right. And especially now with technology, we're learning so much more about fish that we thought was going on, but really it may not be true. But, like I think anytime those fish are up shallow in less than 4 feet, I'm going to throw a buzzbait, especially to specific targets. If I know the fish are on bluegill beds, or there's a shad spawn happening, or there's fish spawning, I'm probably going to throw a buzzbait.
Oh, I apologize. That nasal drain is terrible. Yeah, I've had some really memorable catches on it. I've never caught any giant bass on it, but I feel like there's been moments in tournaments and fun fishing that I'll get
Right.
like key bite and it'll be like, oh, that actually made sense why that fish bit that then. Looking
Yeah.
back on it. And I've had some fun days catching smallmouth on buzzbaits on lakes that I didn't even know they got over 4 pounds. And I was like,
Right.
oh, I was like, dang, smallmouth ate a buzzbait. Sign me up for that every day. Like the
This-
most gracious strike ever.
Yeah, man. Like there's a couple lakes here in North Carolina that have smallmouth in them, and I've caught some fish on buzzbaits there, and the strike is unbelievable. I mean, they just come unglued on it.
It's like a depth charge. Like if you
Yeah.
ever, to put in like an analogy form, if you've ever watched any like old war videos where they're dropping depth charges off the back
Yeah.
of the boat, that's a smallmouth eating a buzzbait, and it's unreal.
Yeah. I think if you were going to catch a fish in deeper water, a smallmouth will be the one that bites it, because, like getting into depth and fishing a buzzbait, I rarely catch a bass, a largemouth, especially on a buzzbait that's deeper than 4 feet, unless there's grass involved,
Yeah. I'm sure spots will come unglued on it though.
They will. Yeah, they will. They're kind of crazy. They'll do stuff when you don't expect them to do it.
That's pretty much the story I've heard of smallmouth, is that they just, not smallmouth spots, but they just kind of have a mind of their own. You never really know
Right.
what's going to happen. So let's kind of dive into the next part of the show here, right? So, I'm sure you get a lot of questions from customers about buzzbait fishing, and I want to know what some of the most common questions you get from your customers are about buzzbaits and kind of how you answer them.
Right. Well, a lot of times people ask me, like, what trailer do I put on a buzzbait, or do I throw a trailer hook? And, depending on the buzzbait, we make like almost 8 different styles of buzzbaits at True South. So we have a variety of baits, but like the V-Twin series has such a long shank and hook. I don't really recommend like, putting a trailer hook on it, because I'm fishing that in cover that a lot of times that trailer hook will get snagged or cause some issues like that. But as far as trailers, I mean, there's some baits, like a lot of times I don't even put a trailer on any skirted baits. Sometimes I'll put a trailer on something that, just a little piece of plastic to give it some bulk or something like that. But I rarely put trailers on buzz baits that have a lot of action. It's usually a straight tail, a fluke style, or, sometimes I'll put, like, if it's not a non-skirted bait, then I'll put something that has some action on it,
Yeah.
But that's kind of the questions I get. Like, when do we throw it? Do you put a trailer hook on? Do you put a trailer on it? And the setup stuff of it, or where to throw it at. That's one of the most things. And I'm like, man, anywhere less than 4 feet. Like if those fish are up there shallow, especially around cover, throw the buzzbait.
The
Flat.
beautiful thing about a buzzbait
Yeah.
too is if you know how to skip, they'll skip quite a ways.
Yeah. The single buzz frame that we made for the horny toad, you can skip it under docks and you can do all kinds of things with that little bait.
That's perfect. And that's one thing I need to mess around with more is putting like a single trailer on there. I'm more of a skirted guy, and I'll put a fluke
Yep.
on it and I'll throw it around a lot of shad busting. I love
Right.
a white buzzbait. And to me, there's only two colors, white and black. And a
Yeah.
black one, I just leave skirted with a gold blade, and a white one, I want like a silver blade or a gold blade, and I throw a fluke on it.
Right.
And it allows me to fish as fast as I want. I can cast a little bit further and a little bit more accurate with that skirting material on it. So, following up on the questions from your customers, I think one of the most important overlooked aspects of a buzzbait is just the overall anatomy of it. And
Yeah.
you can go to the store and you can buy 7 different buzzbaits, right? And all 7 of them will have maybe a different wire on them, a different style prop or blade or skirt, no skirt. Some will come with trailers in the box and unskirted. So I
Right.
want to know overall, in your general opinion, what part of the anatomy makes the best buzzbait or will make a buzzbait great? From
Well,
like
I mean,
bare bones to the total enchilada.
right. I mean, everything kind of works together as far as wire and blades and hook and everything. But I mean, to be honest, a really good hook, and I don't like my buzz baits to have, the shorter shank style hooks. I use a longer shank hook on them. So you don't have to use a trailer hook. And the sound, I mean, the sound I think attracts bass to buzz baits more than any other bait. And the frequency of it. It's very weird. Like you can put 10 different buzz baits in the water, and if you're throwing certain ones, you can tell like that thing sounds absolutely different than everything else that people are throwing. But I think sometimes the frequency of sound, sometimes you want something a little more subtle. Sometimes you want something just straight obnoxious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because you're getting a reaction strike out of these fish most of the time with a buzzbait because you're bringing it right over their heads, But I mean, I can't say that one certain thing is most important about a buzzbait, but I feel like the sound and the hook, like because that's the business end of it,
Yeah. Now there are ways to tune a buzzbait to make it go left or right, but like
Right.
if from a general concept to build like the overall most versatile buzzbait you can, like is there a style wire you want? Is there a certain blade, like one that has holes drilled in it, etc.? Like if you had to choose one buzzbait to throw, which one would you throw to
Well,
make it great?
yeah. So the bait that, especially what we make, I would just pick up a 1/4 ounce. I got one right here, the V Twin, skirted V Twin, 1/4 ounce, has small blades on it, and that's probably the most versatile. Like it's not too big. You can catch a lot of different fish on it. It's kind of a finesse style buzz bait. And you can tune it. You can make it loud by moving these blades together, make these blades knock together, or you can bend it out and make it a lot more quiet. I feel like this little 1/4 ounce V Twin is probably the most versatile that we make, and
And
it's easiest to fish. You know,
is that
because
because it has the 2 blades and causes it to rise a little bit quicker?
it rises very fast. They're counter rotating blades, so the bait runs very true. It's just an easy bait to fish. I mean, if I was recommending one to somebody who just wants to start buzzbait fishing, that would be the one.
I like that. And I was going to ask you when or why would you want a buzzbait with 2 blades? But it sounds like you pretty much answered it. Is one, if you're learning, or two, you want something that's extremely versatile
Right,
and you can just fish in every single situation.
right. I don't really have like a reason why you would fish 2 blades over one, because the smaller V twin displaces a lot less water than a big, single blade buzz bait. Like this is our B1 buzz. It's just a standard offset buzz bait, but
Noisy bugger, I bet.
yep, it's noisy. And, we make one that's super loud. We make we make so many different buzz baits for different, we kind of have like different techniques for each style, whatever you're fishing on the lake. If you want to fish fast over grass, we have one that's like a head knocker style buzz bait that you can cover a lot of water with. And we have the Moab, which is like super loud. You can slow it down. It's very like you're either going to scare the fish or they're going to bite it. It's that kind of bait.
Love
And,
that.
But I mean, there's so much. I try to not make it complicated, but really, like, you can pick up a V twin and fish almost any circumstance you can think of. And that's the reason we built that bait is we wanted to make a double buzz bait that was easy to fish, that was fun to fish, and it absolutely gets smashed on the water,
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure it's like almost like a double bubble trail too, instead of a single,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So a little
Yeah.
bit more surface commotion.
And that was always I'm sure you've heard the analogy of like, oh, well, if you bring your buzz bait back and it's leaving bubbles, and that's a good day to throw a buzz bait. I haven't found that that's really true.
Don't they always leave bubbles pretty much?
There's times when I don't know if it's the oxygen content of the water at the time or the temperature, but like there's times when they leave. Like I can literally show you where I've made my last 10 casts, with bubble trails. And then there's other times when it doesn't leave any bubbles at all. So
that's very interesting.
I have to ask a biologist about that one.
Yeah, that would be a great. And we have Steve Barden come on quite a bit on the Serious Angler Network, so I think that's going to be a question I'm going to write down real fast. Buzz baits.
I want to hear his answer to that one.
Bubble trails. Why does it happen sometimes but not others?
Right.
That's very interesting. I've never really noticed that or paid attention to it. I just listen to make sure it sounds right and that's running
Right.
true.
Yeah.
Oh man. Look at us learning something today. I hope our listeners are taking away a little bit. So, now we're talking about bubbles and throwing a buzzbait. Like, when should someone consider throwing it? Like, besides the morning, like everyone topwater associates morning time, sun rising, topwater, the sun setting, and the dusk. And buzzbaits are also really great at night. But like, if you had one time that you would consider throwing it, when would you recommend somebody to throw it to catch their biggest bass of their trip or day?
Well, I feel like anytime the fish are up shallow, but during the spawn, of course, but there's other times. I mean, you have when the fish are up there eating bluegills, it's a very good time to throw a buzzbait. Mm-hmm. And, especially during like down here during the shad spawns, a great time to throw a buzzbait. Like that's really a fun time to throw it because there's a ton of fish up there eating shad. If you get on the right shad spawn in the morning time or at night, our shad spawns down here start sometimes after midnight and they last till, 7 or 8 o'clock, depending on the sunlight or whatever. But I think during the shad spawn, anytime the fish are up on bluegills or anytime the fish are up super, super shallow, especially if you're seeing fish, if you're seeing like wolf packs of fish cruising the bank in the fall and stuff, because the fall time is a really good time to throw a buzzbait.
You can just cover water, and
yeah,
I feel like it's one of those baits too. You can throw it all day long, no matter what the conditions are, and if you put it in front of enough fish in the right areas of the lake, you're probably going to get 5 bites on it.
Yeah, I feel like the quality of fish you catch on a buzzbait is a little higher than some other baits that you could throw.
Yeah, and do you have any scientific reasoning behind that, or is it just a big fish getter?
Man, I mean, it's just you're targeting big aggressive fish with that. Like you're getting a reaction to strike out of those fish, and for some reason, those bigger fish aren't intimidated by something coming over their head like that until it gets over there to eat it. So maybe the smaller fish run away from it. I don't know.
Well, they can keep running away from it. I'm fine with that. Unless I needed and I'm like, if I just get one more, I'm gonna make some money today. Like
Right.
then I want a small fish to bite it. But I mean, if you're gonna get a 4 pounder to bite instead of a 15 incher, all day
Yeah.
take the 4 pounder.
It's like fishing a jig, like you can put a buzz bait in your hand all day, you can put a jig in your hand all day. And if you get 5 bites on the jig or 5 bites on the buzz bait, they're probably going to be good fish,
Yeah,
you know?
agreed. And that's the best part about fishing is like any technique you throw, you can catch good fish or big fish on them. But there are certain techniques at certain times of the year, at certain parts of the day, where you're going to have a shot at a much larger than average fish than what everyone else is
Right.
targeting. And that's
Yeah.
what keeps us coming back to these fun baits like a buzz bait or a
Yeah.
jig.
That's what we were going to talk about is like time of day, like
Yeah.
don't just consider the buzz bait a morning or evening type of bait or a nighttime bait. You can catch some really good fish in the middle of the day with a buzz bait, especially if you target those shade lines, either on the edge of a dock or down a riprap bank or somewhere. I mean, I've gotten some really good bites during the middle of the day throwing a buzz bait.
I feel like there's a giant misconception with just general topwater fishing is the fact
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
everybody wants to associate it with certain times of the day. And we're talking, I think, a little bit offline on it. Like some of the most memorable topwater bites, no matter what it is, has come in the middle of the day, sunny, flat, calm conditions. You just make that right cast, you put it in the right spot, and it's just like,
Yeah.
yep, I know that's a big one.
Yeah. That's right. I mean, I've even targeted like, even though there's nothing there for the fish to sit on, but there's a shade line.
Yeah,
Those fish use a shade line just like they would use cover. Like the guys out west, they targeted those big mountain lakes with the shade lines, and they fished those shade lines during the middle of the day, and they caught fish on them because they used that shade as an ambush point.
yeah. The ones that get it, and the ones that don't will go right by it. Like, there's not a tree there. Why would I cast? Or
Right.
there's no grass. They just run away from it. Shade is your friend, especially when it's sunny and there's no wind. Anywhere you have shade, there could be a fish.
Yeah.
So,
Especially like one of my favorite places to throw a buzz bait is in the middle of summer when it's so dang hot and everybody thinks all the fish are out in the middle of the lake. I'll go into the back of a creek and look at my maps and see where it's shady most of the day.
yeah,
It's got to be a high bank and it's got to be in a certain part of the lake. And I can target those areas. And some lakes have more places than others. And there's some that just have one or two places, but guarantee you can fish those kind of places. And those are very good places to target. I've caught some really good fish doing that during the hot times of the year. I mean,
you're plucking the residents that never leave.
right,
What's
right.
happening?
There's places on the lake that are shaded almost all day at certain times of the year,
Yeah.
especially sun.
And the water's gonna be a little bit cooler, a little bit more oxygen. It completely
Right.
makes
If
sense.
you can find a place like that that has a run in during the summer, that place is lights out. I wouldn't even share it with anybody. you know?
Yeah, you're like, it's mine. You kind of give them the Tommy Biffle treatment, right? Like
Right.
from here to there is mine. If you come in here, I'm going to cut you, like type
Yeah,
deal.
yeah. Give you this whole bank right here, but I'm fishing here.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, John Cox does it. I mean,
yeah,
he's kind of that kind of guy. When he started doing that, I was like, oh my gosh, man! Like, you sure you want to show people that?
yeah.
But I've told people that too. Like, I'm really here just to help people catch more fish. Like, I mean, it's really not going to make any difference to me. I'm not out there fishing tournaments every weekend.
Right. You're just trying to catch fish and sell a bunch of baits, which is
Yeah, I mean,
not a
dude.
bad way to get by.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make it to retirement.
Yeah. Hopefully a little bit of ways away for the guys who love True South custom lures. So,
Yeah, I'm not
so
planning on anywhere right now.
fair enough. So hopefully business continues to stay good, but still a few more questions for you here, John. So, you know, this one's kind of tough for a lot of people when they go and break down a new lake, but specifically keeping a buzzbait in mind when you roll up to a different body of water than you fished in a while or it's brand new to you. What type of areas do you look for besides shade lines that would be high percentage areas to catch a bass on a buzzbait?
Probably like flats close to a creek channel. I like those places. I mean, it really depends on the time of year too, but like if you can find a creek that has a big flat with some cover on it, those are places those fish will pull out of that creek channel and get up there and feed on sometimes.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're very subtle places. I mean, other than that, like, I look for grass lines. I look for, especially if a lake has submerged hydrilla and it's not quite topped out. I love those places, especially near the edges of where the grass stops. Those fish will sit on top of that. And I use that. We make a buzzbait called a beater. It's like a little small 3/8 ounce bait that has like a medium blade on it. It's this one.
So real compact.
Yeah, it's a head knocker. So I would throw a trailer hook on this one because there's so much, there's not a lot of gap here between the hook and the blade, but I can cover those places. If those places have stumps and grass on it, man, that's the bait I pick up. Like I look for those flat areas that have a lot of cover where it gives a lot of places for those fish to sit and feed.
Off the beaten path, and a question I just thought of, when you're going on a body of water, how many rods do you have tied on with a buzzbait on any given day?
Sometimes two, but normally it's just one.
Just the one?
Yeah. Yeah, and unless they're really biting it, I won't have more than maybe two. Maybe I'll switch it up, with two different style baits, but normally it's just one.
Got it. And then it's either white or black. And obviously, if it's a shad spawn, it's probably white most of the time, right?
I will say this, though. Like, I'll start out in the mornings with black, especially like this is our V-twin. Black blades, black skirt. I'll start with that in the mornings. And if they're biting it, they'll bite it for a while sometimes before I have to change. But I keep throwing it. If I'm getting bites on the black, I just keep throwing it. If they stop biting it, I'll try changing colors first before I put it down.
Makes sense. Absolutely.
But sometimes I'll start if it's low light in the mornings, I'll start with black, even during shad spawn. Now, I've had some really good days. Like we're right here by Lake Norman. There's a bunch of crazy spotted bass, but they will smoke a black buzzbait.
Yeah.
Even during the shad spawn, everybody's throwing white. I'm throwing black.
It doesn't matter. I feel like when they're keying on something that makes noise, you could probably throw almost anything in there that looks somewhat realistic, and you're gonna get bit.
And the way that sounds, it has a swishing sound in the water, a lot like a lot of shad. If they're up there spawning, they make that weird sound. But I do like I'll start with black before I change to white most of the time. But I mean, if I'm targeting bluegill beds, I'm usually throwing black too because I'm throwing in shade.
Yep.
But other times I'll have like a shad color on, or just a bait with a, like the horny toad. I mean, that's a really good bait, especially in the fall. Like it's just simple and quiet. It doesn't make a ton of noise, but it's easy to fish, and it gets a lot of bites.
You kind of jumped there, right? So, like, my next question was going to be, when it comes to throwing a buzzbait, when would you choose a skirted buzzbait or one that you can put a plastic trailer on, or both?
Right.
Like, so kind of like, when would you choose between the two?
Right. Normally, I used to fish skirted buzzbaits all the time, even when we were making the buzz frame way back, because the buzz frame came about with the horny toad on it. Todd Alton on Lake Wiley started throwing it. Brian Thrift started throwing it. And some guys came to us and said, look, can you make like a buzzbait specifically designed with a bigger hook and the head so we can rig this frog over? So we built one. And I didn't really throw it that much. Like I was still throwing skirted baits because I was catching fish on them. But I don't really have a reason for throwing one over the other. But when the fish are really pressured, I feel like I'll switch down to like this one, like just with a fluke on it. I just rig it upside down because it rigs a little better. But like this is pretty cool when it's pressured fish. But like in the springtime, I'll start out with a skirted bait. And then as the summer progresses, I'll kind of change it up and go into more like the frog or a fluke on it.
Yeah.
But I really don't have it really depends on the lake. Like if I'm fishing Lake Hartwell, I'm probably putting a fluke on it,
Yeah.
because of herring lakes. If it's herring lakes, I'm probably putting more flukes and stuff like that on it.
Which makes sense to me. Or if
Yeah,
they're just keying it on bait, or if they're more bluegills, then you could go to more like
right.
horny toad style trail, et cetera, or leave the big bulky skirt on.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. Like if the water's super clear, I'll usually go with more of the non-skirted baits. If it's a little more dirty, I'll use the skirted baits, and sometimes I'll put a trailer on it with that.
It makes sense to me.
Yep.
So moving forward, like, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about a buzzbait? And then I'm going to tie in these two questions together. So I want to know like some of the biggest misconceptions, and I also want to know what some of the biggest mistakes or errors that you see with anglers throwing a buzzbait.
Okay, well, I think, with the misconceptions, I think is thinking it's just a morning and evening type of bait. I feel like it's an all-day bait. If those fish are up shallow, that you can definitely target them with the buzzbait. So that's one of the biggest misconceptions, I think. And the fact that it's just not a springtime, summertime, fall time bait. You can fish this bait, in above 50 degrees, like down here, like we rarely get water temperatures that get much lower than 40. It's usually like 45 is our bottom end.
Yeah.
But I think people think that it's just a summertime bait,
Do
but
people also think that it's like more of like a moderately like stained on the clear side or a clear water bait, or do you think people think that they should be throwing it in muddy water more often?
man, I know people that say, "Oh, I don't want to throw a buzz bait because it's too muddy." But like I've caught fish in super muddy water with a buzz bait because those fish are up there shallow. I think that's the most important thing with fishing a buzz bait. If there's a majority of fish in shallow water, whether it's dirty water or clear water, they will bite a buzz bait a lot of the times. You just have to kind of work with those ambush points and those angles with those
Yeah.
fish, because I feel like pulling the bait from behind a fish is not going to get a reaction out of a buzz bait. But like if you pull it by a corner of a fish in front of his face, I just don't like coming from behind the fish. So if I feel like those fish are setting up a certain way, I'm definitely not going to throw it where my bait's coming behind them. I want to bring it in front of them,
Yeah.
But as far as mistakes, I think people fish too heavy of a rod with the buzz bait sometimes. I mean, I'll just use a medium heavy, like some guys will use a heavy rod, and I feel like it's just too much. You got to let those fish get that bait, because a lot of times the fish will come up behind it and slurp it if they're not just smashing it. And it's almost like frog fishing. You just got to let them get the bait. Don't pull it away from them when they react to it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's one thing I learned about it right away is whenever one would swirl, I'd try to jack them. I'm like, all right, dummy, like just
Yeah.
keep reeling until you feel them. And I feel like a big sweep hook set is almost better than like a big three
Yeah.
quarter or an overhead style
Right.
hook
And a
set.
lot of times you're like, I use a 7-foot medium heavy rod. I'm just fishing, I'm making tight little casts to different targets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'm not using much over a 7-foot rod. Just medium heavy.
Yeah, I guess that'd be the next question, right? Like to wrap it up here, right? Like I just want to know your overall setup. So I know we're talking about rod 7 foot medium heavy. Is it a not glass, is it a graphite rod? Is it a composite rod that you like? Something that's a little bit softer to let them eat it, but you can actually hit them a little bit harder. And then also like what reel speed are you using? And then line, are you like a because I feel like this is one thing where a lot of people get confused on is like you'll read like 20-pound Berkeley big game or straight fluorocarbon or braid. So I want to know your take on the line last after we hear about the style of rod in the reel.
Right. So I use just a medium heavy, fast action, graphite rod. I don't have anything special. I don't have a special rod for it. And a lot of times I'll use a 7.4 reel instead of a really high speed reel because I feel I'll fish the bait too fast, because a lot of the buzz baits we make come up to the surface really quickly. So a 7.4 is fine for me. Now, some guys say like, I like a 8.4, 8.5, you know, I'm definitely not using a super fast reel. I feel like you'll overfish the bait a little bit, but that's just me. Cause I mean, you can always just slow down reeling. But I like a 7.4 medium heavy, fast or moderate fast rod. And that's my setup. I don't try to overcomplicate it too much. As
Yeah.
far as line goes, I've tried everything. I used to be a straight, I want green big game on any moving baits, period. Because the stuff will pull a truck, but it stretches like really, yeah, it's very
The
straight.
rubber band.
But I've figured out like over the years from my setups and the way I fish, I use 30-pound braid on most buzz baits, unless I'm skipping a bait, and then I'll use 15 or 17-pound mono usually. And sometimes I'll use fluorocarbon, but normally it's just mono if I'm skipping the bait, just because of the braid and the tendencies of braid when you skip.
It'll jump and bury itself in the
Right.
reel, etc. So, like, what made you come to the conclusion that 30-pound braid was the best braid to throw buzzbait on?
Well, I just trial and error. I've tried like everything under the sun. I've used a lot of different like copolymer lines, which I like. I don't like straight fluorocarbon on the buzzbait, but I like some copolymers. Even like there's a brand called K9, which is a very reasonably priced line, and their fluorocarbon is like a 97%. I believe it's not. They sell 100%, and they sell their original, which is not quite 100% fluorocarbon. It's a really good line for a buzzbait, but I would suggest if you like using 15, go to 17 because their test on that line is very accurate. You know, like a lot of line companies are going to sell you 17, but it's really like 20.
Yeah.
But the K9 is very close to their pound test. So if you're using 14 K9, I would probably use 17.
Got it.
But it casts great. Like it's very manageable line that way.
I've actually never tried the K9. I'm interested. Now I'm going to have to go buy another spool. Thanks.
It's
You're
good
breaking
stuff.
me now.
Like I really I've been using it for a while, and like I used to be a straight Sunline guy. I still use the Sunline leader material, and the shooter is really good. Like that was my jig line.
Yeah.
But I've kind of transitioned over to the K9. Just I wanted to try it, and I've been pretty happy with it. You know, like their 100% is a little coily, but once you put it on your reel and use it a little bit, it really straightens out, and it's strong.
Yeah.
You know, I'm happy with it, and their braid is really good too. The only issue with braid is, you know, most every braid is going to fade over time, but their braid is very like supple, and I really like the braid. I use their 30-pound green braid. It's an 8-strand for buzzbait. I mean, that's kind of what I do with it.
Yeah, and with 30-pound, I'm sure you're getting really good casting distance out of it as well.
Yeah.
So.
The thing about the buzzbait, though, is like I'm a top water fisherman, so I've trained myself not to overreact to a fish that bites the top water. And that's probably one of the most important things, you know, just top water fishing in general, is not to snatch the bait away from the fish. It's like, it's almost like training yourself not to move when a fish bites the bait, and then you let it load up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Feel that pressure and then load them.
Yeah, that's super important.
Such a great tip. I appreciate it. So, John, before I let you run here, I want to say thank you for coming on. But is there anything that you feel like we may have missed on the buzzbait talk here?
No, I don't think so. I mean, like you can go check our buzzbaits out at truesouithlures.com. We have like a plethora of different styles. And if there's any questions or anybody has about buzzbaits, you can always hit us up on our Instagram or Facebook, and we'll try to answer those questions for you.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm a fan. I'll be picking some up here shortly because it's about to be big time buzzbait season up here for us. So I look forward to getting out and throwing some around. It's not a technique that I forget about, but I tend to forget that it's in my boat, and then at the end of the day, it's like, dang it, I came across 9 situations I could have thrown this dang thing, and I didn't pull it out of the rod locker.
Yeah, I feel like buzzbaits have had a little more spotlight on them over the last several years. I
Yeah.
feel like there for a while nobody was really talking about them, but I see a lot of guys fishing them during the fall. Like I've seen them, with the elites fishing. Like I think they were fishing Cherokee a while back, and a lot of buzzbait stuff got exposed there.
Yeah.
But I feel like with anything in fishing, there's a cycle. I mean,
Ebbs and
once
flows.
fish gets accustomed to something, you kind of have to switch it up a little bit.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
but yeah, man, I mean it's fun to fish buzz baits, and it's not just for tournament fishing. It's fun fishing and pond fishing and river fishing.
One of the greatest pond baits of like all time,
Yeah,
without a doubt. So
yeah. There's some guys in West Virginia that use our little V twin and black, and they fish the rivers with them, like the 1/4 ounce size, and they catch a ton of smallmouth on it.
like the New River, which is the big one in West Virginia, I
They
believe.
were catching muskies on it too.
Oh heck yeah! If you get like a 50-inch muskie to blow up and eat a little speed demon buzzbait, that's gonna be a riot.
Straight destroy it, but it's fun.
Yeah, that thing is destroyed. There's no buzzbait coming back, and hopefully the hook lasts. So
yeah.
Well, John, I want to say thank you again for taking the time. I know it was a scheduling nightmare on my behalf this past week, and I appreciate you being so courteous with your time so we could get this in for the folks listening. So thank you again. And if you need anything from us at all, let us know up here, and I hope you have a great weekend.
All right, well, I appreciate it. Thank everybody
Yeah,
for
of course.
I hope it, helps you out a little bit with the buzzbait fishing. I really enjoyed it. I love talking about fishing.
Absolutely, John. Well, we appreciate it, and we'll have to get you on the Serious Angler Network and get you on that side and tell you a little bit more about your backstory. So we'd love to have you on again, and we will chat soon.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Of course. Have a good night. Well, day at this point. So we'll talk soon.
All right.
All right, everyone. Well, that was John Martin of True South Custom Baits. I kind of cut him off there at the end. That's my apologies. I guess I'm a little rusty for taking the Memorial Day weekend off. But we're back at it again this week. We appreciate everyone who tunes in. So if you're new to the YouTube and you've made it at the 47-minute mark, please hit that subscribe button. We come at you every Saturday evening with a new episode, talking all the hottest tournament techniques, fun fishing, pond fishing. Doesn't matter what we talk about, will help you put more fish on the bank or in the boat. We appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. Leave a thumbs up and drop a comment down below if you have used any of the True South custom lures, buzzbaits, or any of their other baits. We're going to link it down there as well, so you can go find their social media. And then also on top, if you're listening on your favorite MP3 or podcast platform that allows you to leave a review, please do so and stay tuned for next week's episode.